All right, good morning, everyone. It is now 9:02, and we've got almost 100 participants, so we will go ahead and get started. On behalf of the Louisiana Department of Education, it is with great excitement that I welcome you and your teams to the 2022-2023 School System Planning November launch, which will focus on the Achieve Incentive Planning Round 2 and Super App. During today's call, it would be helpful to have the 2022 School System Planning Guide available to reference, and a direct link has been provided to you in the chat. If you have any questions at any point during today's call, please send a private message via the chat to our team. We will strive to respond to all questions. In the event that we are unable to address your specific question during the call, please reach out to your school systems relations coach or email the Louisiana Grants Help Desk at la.gov. This morning, we will start by going over our vision of success. We'll review some accountability updates, and then we will jump into the 2022-2023 school system planning review and have an overview of that process and look at what's new. And then we will close out with our support and resources. So our Louisiana's vision of success really can be translated into all of the priorities outlined in our Believe to Achieve Educational Priorities Plan. At the start of this year, the department released the educational priorities, and it serves as our roadmap to improving outcomes for all of Louisiana's children. The Believe to Achieve includes the department's belief statement and state data to help track progress towards Louisiana's 6 critical goals and the new priorities that will direct the Louisiana Department of Education's efforts as we work towards achieving the critical goals. Each priority outlines focus areas and key actions with initiatives. These are our belief statements, and as part of developing our vision of success, it was crucial that we really ask ourselves, what do we believe? And so out of numerous conversations and engagements with our stakeholders, we landed on 8 beliefs that serve as the compass for everything that we do. And here you can see that we are driven by a mission centered on getting the best outcome for all of the children who call Louisiana home. It's our vision that every child can reach their full potential no matter where they're from, how much money their family makes, or where they live. We're going to get there by giving all students the opportunities and tools they deserve so they are prepared to graduate high school and are ready for a career or college. As we move into the 2021-2022 school year, we're committed to putting our beliefs in action. Here we can see that our why is we are servant leaders who support all stakeholders to ensure all students have what they need to succeed. We are grounded in our values, and ultimately we have 3 commitments that we have made to our stakeholders, and that is that our investments must have a collective impact, that our planning must be outcomes, strategic, and priorities-based, and we must be transparent and accountable for how resources are used. Now we are going to go over the 2022-2023 school system planning process and review. Each year, school systems and lead agencies plan for how to improve student learning in the coming year. This process involves reviewing student achievement and progress data, establishing priorities, building a budget aligned to those priorities, and using all available funding sources and implementing the plan with support. School systems will create a plan and budget resources to meet all the needs of students in 3 main EGMS applications: Achieve, Believe, and Super App. School systems will create a plan in each of those applications, and we will cover more on each of these in the coming sections of this deck. Here are a few key dates highlighted. So as you can see, the School System Planning Guide and Workbook have been updated and we're going to be released today to provide additional information on the Achieve Incentive Round 2, Believe, and Super App content. In order to receive ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 incentive funding, school systems will respond to planning questions in the Achieve Incentive Planning application. The Achieve Incentive Planning Round 2 application is live now in EGMS in the 2021 application area. And school systems must provide responses to these questions by Thursday, December 16th for funding, which will be allocated at March BESI. The application currently contains 7 Round 2 questions. In order to access the Round 2 questions, school systems must have already submitted Round 1 questions to LDOE. LEAs must then create an Amendment 1 of the Achieve Incentive Planning application within EGMS. The department turned to our community to help determine how we should prioritize our state's set-aside portion of ESSER funds. We continue to honor our commitment as a feedback-rich administration. Using this feedback, we developed a multi-year strategic plan aimed at creating opportunities to close learning gaps created by the pandemic. Bolded items on this list are the application questions where school systems have the ability to select from a predefined list of high-quality options. The links to these lists are found in Appendix A. Or school systems may elect to upload the alternative evidence-based option form, which we will look at now. To really meet the needs of our school systems, we understand that there needs to be some flexibility for the choices that they implement. So school systems will have the opportunity to submit a request to implement an alternate evidence-based option for multiple initiatives. So the term evidence-based, when used with respect to the state or LEA or school activity, means an activity or strategy or intervention that demonstrates a statistically significant effect on improving student outcomes or demonstrates a rationale based on high-quality research findings. So we've inserted this option in numerous initiatives within the application, and the steps to complete it are simple. So download the form, complete the form, and then upload it back in EGMS. It will be reviewed by our program people who will then give feedback and or approval to implement that evidence-based alternate option. Now we'll move into Super App. It is the single birth through graduation plan that gives school systems access to federal formula and competitive dollars and fulfills the federal requirement for each school system's ESSA plan. It also includes funding for the core components of school improvement at CIR, UIRA, and UIRD sites. Super App is also currently live in EGMS, and school systems must provide responses to these questions. The Achieve Incentive Round 2 is also live in EGMS, and the school systems must provide responses to those questions by Friday, February 4th for funding, which will be allocated at April BESI. Now we're going to move into an overview of the schools in need of intervention. So Super App involves funding for school improvement at CIR, UIRA, and UIRD sites. A CIR school is one that's been rated D or F for 3 consecutive years, or one with a graduation rate of less than 67%, or one identified as UIR for the same student group or discipline for 3 consecutive years. UIRA schools have earned a score equivalent to an F for 1 or more student groups for 2 years or more. and UIRD, or UIR discipline schools, have had an out-of-school suspension rates that are over 2 times the national average for at least 3 years. While any school may have multiple designations that they are managing, each school should only focus on providing strategies for the one designation that will have the most significant impact. The chart on this slide provides a breakdown of how schools should determine which label to focus their efforts on. Due to the impacts of the pandemic, the U.S. Department of Education approved LDOE's waiver to forego school performance scores and letter grades for the 2020-2021 school year. This means that all schools will retain any CIR, UIRA, or UIRD label that they had in 2020. For systems CIR and UIRA plans to be approved, school systems should ensure that they are meeting all approval and funding criteria that is listed in Appendix B, CIR, UIRA requirements of the School System Planning Guide. While UIRD funding is optional, systems with UIRD sites are encouraged to apply if they decide to address their higher than national average rate of out-of-school suspensions for a pay-for program. Systems must identify a nationally recognized evidence-based strategy that has a proven record of success when used in schools serving similar student populations in order to be approved for this funding. Systems can also refer to the 2022-2023 UIR funding guidance document for more information about the requirements and submission procedures. There are several new features and funding opportunities in this year's Super App that we'd like to take a minute to highlight. First, LDOE will not load estimated federal funding into the 2022-2023 Super App in December, as we've done in previous years. Instead, school systems will only have to respond to the planning questions within Super App and won't have to submit an initial budget as part of the February submission. Super App now also contains 2 new requirements for CIR and UIRA sites. School improvement best practices, the portal access, instructional leadership team, and teacher collaboration support are all required at CIR and UIRA sites. English learning professional development is required at all UIRA sites with a UIRL label, but also remains as an optional funding for all other CIR and UIRA sites. CIR and UIRA sites may now take advantage of new optional funding opportunities, including funding for enhanced literacy efforts, specialized support professional development, and ELA and math content leaders. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Hunter Brown, our Executive Director of Operational Quality, to go over support and resources and to close us out.
Thanks, Danielle. Good morning, everyone. We have several resources available to school systems to help with planning for submission of Achieve Incentive Round 2 and Super App. Those resources are on the screen now, and each one of these resources can be found in the School Improvement Library. They were posted this morning, so please hit refresh if you already have the page open and you should see these items. The School System Planning Guide will look similar to the document created in years past. It contains all the key information that school systems need in order to plan for the submission of these applications. It also includes what we call Appendix A, which is a question-by-question breakdown of all the questions that you will encounter in both applications. For each question, you can see the question, you can see funding guidance for how to formulate a funding request where applicable, and you will also find resources for each question that can help with planning. Lastly, we have the Strategic Planning and Budgeting Workbook, which I'll do a quick tour of now. This document does look similar to the one that we released in September, and I will highlight differences in just a moment. For those of you who are not part of September's launch, we'll do a little bit of a review here, but we encourage you to dig in. The first tab is an instruction tab, which will explain to you that when you initially click the link, this document is view only. So in order to use this resource, you'll have to make a copy by clicking File, Make a Copy. Once a copy has been made, you'll have full editing capabilities in a separate space that your team can use to plan for the year. The first two red tabs are a multi-year budgeting tool that school systems can use to help identify priorities and how much funding they intend to put forth from their own existing funds, as well as any funding requests they may want to enter into either the Achieve Incentive Round 2 application or into Super App across multiple school years. Once school systems use this budgeting tool, which has most of the fields that you will encounter in UGMS where you create your budgets, once you enter those items, they roll up automatically into several analytics on the previous tab, the SPV analysis tab. You can see how line items sum by either priority or within priorities by focus areas, and then also at the bottom by object code as well. The P1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 tabs contain all of the questions that school systems will have either previously encountered in Achieve Round 1, we'll see in Super App, or we'll find in the Achieve Incentive Round 2 application. For the most part, these questions have remained the same from when we originally released this planning workbook with the September launch of Achieve Incentive Round 1. However, there are a few places that updates have been made, and any place like that has a big red block next to it that explains what happened since the original launch. So for example, rows 41 through 43 is a brand new question that was not in the original release. You can use this to quickly update if you've already started using the document from the September launch. There are one or two other places where you'll find these blocks, and if it says modified, the thing that was changed will be in red text. Finally, we have the Super App Investments tab, which school systems can use to help plan their Title I set-asides. This tab works the same as in years past. Again, all of those resources can be found in our School Improvement Library, which we've updated just this morning. Other places where LDOE is offering support to school systems as they plan include the LDOE weekly newsletters, school system leader calls, the federal support and grantee relations calls. These are monthly calls, and the Achieve, Believe, and Super App office hours have been merged into those monthly calls. So please watch in our weekly newsletter for updates about when those calls are happening if you would like to ask questions live of LDOE staff. Finally, if you have questions and are not able to wait until one of the monthly calls, feel free to email ldoe.grantshelpdesk@la.gov and include Achieve, Believe, or Super App in the subject line as applicable. We'll now pause for a few minutes to collect responses to any questions that have been submitted. If you would like to submit a question about any of the content we've discussed here today, please use the chat feature and make sure to include an email address with each question that you submit. At this time, we've received 2 questions, but please feel free to continue submitting questions if others come to mind. The first question is the strategic budget tab required to be completed as part of the application? And the answer is no. The entirety of the planning workbook is optional and may be used at a school system's discretion. Nothing is required to be completed in the workbook itself. Please just make sure to submit responses in Super App or Achieve Incentive Round 2 when those due dates arise. That leads us to our second question. When are the questions due that need to be submitted? The Achieve Incentive Round 2 application is due December 16th in EGMS, and Super App is due February 4th in EGMS. Those are all the questions that we've received at this point. We will wait 1 more minute to see if any other questions roll in, and then we'll wrap up the call. All right, we have not received any other questions, so we'll wrap up today's call. As a final reminder, the Achieve Incentive Round 2 application is due December 16th. Super App is due February 4th, and please join us on our monthly calls if you have questions in between, or submit an email to ldoe.parentshelpdesk@la.gov. Thank you for joining today, everyone, and we will talk to you soon.